Are we ready to begin? Perfect. Okay, we'll now call to order the Thursday, July 20th, 2023 Reno City Planning Commission meeting. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Commissioner Johnson, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Can we please have a roll call?
J.D. Draculich,
Here.
Harris Armstrong,
Here.
Peter Gower.
Still here.
Can you say that in the microphone, please?
Still here, Michelle.
Thank you. Mark Johnson.
Here.
Arthur Munoz is absent. Sylvia Villanueva.
Here.
Alex Felto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. We'll now move on to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the June 8th, 2023 minutes.
Wait, no, I'm sorry. Number 3 is public comment.
Oh, apologies. I'm skipping ahead. Public comment. We'll open up public comment. This item is for either public comment on any action item or for any general public comment. Do we have any requests to speak forms?
Okay. It should be noted for those in the audience that comments are to be addressed to the Planning Commission as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the Planning Commission agenda. Please note that the Planning Commission may not take action upon any matter not agendized for possible action on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name, and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you are an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment at this time, please raise your hand. Lastly, while in this room, please be respectful. Warnings will be issued by the presiding officer if there is disruptive behavior, and you will be asked to leave chambers if the behavior continues. With that, we did receive correspondence that was general in nature and not specific to any items on this agenda. I did not receive any request to speak forms, and I did not receive any voicemails for this item.
Thank you. Would anyone in the public like to speak during public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to agenda item number 4, which is approval of the June 8th, 2023 minutes.
Commissioner Gower, move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Gower. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Villanueva, second.
Great. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, the motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to agenda item number 5, which is election of officers. So the terms are up currently for the chair and the vice chair. So now's the time for the election of officers for both of those positions. Would be supportive of having a chair be Commissioner Draculich and a vice chair of Commissioner Armstrong. I understand that, it's oftentimes the chair will try to go again for a second term. I think that this is a good time to transition, given that I have been needing to come to meetings on Zoom more often than I'd like, and it makes more sense for the folks that have been here in person to take the reins and be leaders of the commission. So with that, I'll turn it over to conversation from the remainder of the commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gower, I'm in favor of your recommendation, and I would make a nomination for Commissioner Draculich as chair and Commissioner Armstrong as vice chair.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, I will second that motion.
Great. All those in favor? Aye. Great. The motion carries unanimously. With that, we will rearrange our chairs to allow the new chair to take over. Hey, congratulations.
Congratulations to you, sir. Good job. Oh, did you knock me out? Will you put it? Do you have the report up? Staff report?
Oh, I did, but I logged out.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to get it moving. All right, if you didn't say so already, closing item number 5, election of officers, moving to item number 6, public hearings. Any person who has chosen to provide his or her public comment when a public hearing is heard will need to so indicate on the request to speak form provided to the secretary. Alternatively, you may provide your comment when item 3, public comment, is heard at the beginning of this meeting. We'll open item number 6.1, staff report, case number LDC-00061, 550 Orcrest, and we'll get a presentation, from staff. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Foster, Associate Planner for the record. Tonight we have LDC 2361, which is a zone change for a property at 550 Orcrest. Okay. So the site is approximately 1 acre in size. It is an undeveloped parcel, roughly in between North Virginia on the left and Highway 395 on the right. And it is just west, or a little bit west, of the Washoe County Jail facility. And as you can see, the general development pattern to the south of the site is essentially industrial. The request before you tonight is a zoning map amendment from large lot residential 1 to mixed employment, which would bring it into conformance with the master plan, and no uses or buildings are proposed at this time. The key issue is zoning compatibility, and just as we've zoomed in here, I wanted to point out that surrounding the site are a mobile home across the Orcrest to the north, a vacant single-family home to the west, outdoor storage to the east, and RV storage used to the south. So again, we have current zoning of large lot residential 1 acre in size, which does not conform with the master plan designation. The proposed change is to mixed employment, which would conform with the master plan designation. And I would note that the original request for it was for industrial, but that is not allowed under the master plan because industrial is limited to existing properties with that designation, same as industrial, commercial, and mixed airport. So essentially, mixed employment was the only designation that was appropriate, other than the other options were professional office, parks, greenways, and open space, public facilities, PUD, and SPD. So given the industrial area and given the master plan designation that supports light industrial development, mixed employment was pretty much the only zoning designation that made sense. And the proposed ME zone would also facilitate future maximization of the property's usefulness. Here you can see the master plan land use, which is mixed employment, a few policies and goals that line up with the request. And I would also point out that the previous master plan land use for this area was industrial. So here are a lot of uses that are allowed in mixed employment. The ME zoning district is intended to provide a mix of employment focused uses such as light manufacturing, processing, wholesaling, flex space, research and development, and offices. In contrast, LLR1 zoning is intended to accommodate rural, single-family residential uses and agricultural uses. So as you can see, the list of uses allowed in ME, due to residential adjacency, the uses highlighted in green would require approval of a site plan review, which is an administrative review process. The uses highlighted in yellow would require either a minor conditional use permit, also administrative, or a full conditional use permit with approval from the Planning Commission. Here are the development standards for both LLR1 and ME. And again, I want to emphasize that any future non-residential development would require a site plan review, and additional site-specific conditions for compatibility may be applied at that time. Here are the recommended findings for a zoning map amendment. Staff can make all the recommended findings, and here's the recommended motion. I'm available for questions.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. All right, we will now push it to the commissioners for disclosures. Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No disclosures.
Commissioner Armstrong, no disclosures.
Commissioner Velto, no disclosures.
Commissioner Villanueva, no disclosures.
Commissioner Johnson, no disclosures.
Commissioner Draculich, no disclosures. All right. We'll now open this up for public comment. Yeah, I was wondering, was the applicant here?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was expecting the applicant to go first, and I thought it was just,
Sorry, I should have clarified. The applicant did not have a presentation.
Oh.
But is available for questions.
oh, okay. So no presentation from
No
the applicant.
presentation.
Okay, thank you. That's what I assumed. Great. So now we've done disclosures and move it to public comment. Great, okay. Michelle, did we get any requests to speak forms?
I did not receive any requests to speak forms, no voicemails, and no correspondence was received.
Okay, great. So anybody in the chambers wish to make a public comment? Oh, sir? Yeah, do you have, as the applicant, if you want to make a public comment, do you want to submit and get your 3 minutes or just take questions from us? Okay. But you would like to come speak, sir? Yeah. Okay, and when you're done, please state your name at the microphone and fill out a request to speak form.
So hello, Tim Lambden with Ferrari Lund Real Estate, also representing the potential buyer of this property, also representing several other properties in the area which I worked on, including Reno Tahoe Steel, which is at 495 Lovett Lane, right down the street from this. They're not only business people that I've worked with, but one of them is a relative. We're very much in favor of this recommendation here. We are ready to comply with whatever happens after the zone change and submit the appropriate plans. Also, one of the owners of Reno Tahoe Steel also owns one of the Tenaya Creek residential parcels, also right in that same area. Therefore, he's got a voice two different ways as a resident and as a business owner in that area. I don't see any issue with it as far as compliance on future plans, and would very much like to see this happen. That's it.
Thank you, Tim. And if you could fill out a request to speak form over to the right with Michelle. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Anybody else here in the room wish to make a public comment?
Tim, excuse me. Could you fill out a comment card, please? Thank you.
Seeing none, we will close public comment and push it to the commissioners for questions of the applicant, staff, or general discussion. Looks like we don't have much to say. We'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Johnson, I'm prepared to make a motion. Thank you. Case of LDC 23-00061, 550 Orcrest, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to recommend that City Council approve the zoning map amendment by ordinance, and I can make all the findings.
We have a motion.
Commissioner Armstrong, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All right, any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Good luck. We'll close item 6.1, move to item 6.2, which is case number LDC 23-00050, Evans Avenue Coffee Shop. And it looks like we have the applicant here with the
I am
presentation.
actually representing the applicant.
Great, thank you.
So my name is Kyle Fox. I'm with KRI Architecture. We are hoping to convert a garage into a coffee shop. This is over by UNR. We're hoping to promote walkability in the area. We are requesting an alternative equivalent compliance for screening. We would like to go from solid screening or semi-opaque screening to solid screening, which would be equivalent and greater than what the requirement is. And also, we are submitting for a conditional use permit to do a non-residential development in a residential area. So I think Brooklyn's going to do most of the speaking. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time. We'll take a presentation from Brooke from the city.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Brooke Oswald. I'm Associate Planner with Development Services. Case before you tonight is LDC 23-00050 Evans Avenue Coffee Shop, which is a conditional use permit and an alternative equivalent compliance. The property there is in the yellow. As you can see, the UNR, that's UNR campus directly to the left. We are seeing the community center and the large park area to the right there. We're anticipating two development projects coming in, multifamily development projects coming in just to the right of the project. There you can see down the center line down the middle there, that's a railway. Just off Evans, you have a railway, and then we have the development to the right, which is a mix of single-family homes and commercial development. The site's approximately a third of an acre. It consists of there's currently a home on the site with a resident and a garage. They're applying to turn that garage portion, which is about 450 square feet, into a coffee shop, and they are in for that residential adjacency on that. The alternative compliance I'll go into a little bit more, but it is a landscape screening, and it's part of the constraints of the site itself that lends that. We are in MF30 zoning. That MF30 zoning, multifamily, 30 units per acre, but it does allow a number of less intense uses, a restaurant being one of them. We're seeing that multifamily. You can see the strip of multifamilies. This is actually a better photo to show that railway line, which is directly to the right of the project site, and then the UNR campus to the left. Key issues here, really looking at that overall site design, that compatibility with those adjacent residents, and parking and access. And conditions have been applied to this to help to address those issues. This is the project site itself. The residents will remain on the right portion of this. You can see the garage in the front. The drive itself will be moved into, will be converted into the patio area, the curb cut removed, trees planted along that, and so we won't have those backing motions back out on the street in that area. This is a little unique in that this was originally submitted as a minor use permit and a site plan review, and then the alternative compliance came up, and so what we did is just elevate that up to a CUP and brought them all together before you tonight. Several master plan policies that were generally mentioned with that pedestrian realm, the neighborhood connections, walkability, looking at sustainable development, and then the other pedestrian and cycle connections. The project site itself, the gray portion, striped gray portion, is the roof line of the house. Up towards the left, top left of that, you can see some tables laid out, bike parking, and then that's where the coffee shop it will be itself. In the back will be residential, converted to the residential parking, and the residents will now park in the back. And then that rear is the rear yard will become the residential parking on that. This is all our alternative compliance. We have set standards within Reno Municipal Code. We do, using this tool, we have the ability to modify those, and we're looking at what they're proposing as equivalent or better than what we would get. So they have the semi-opaque wall with the trees at the 30-year linear feet. What is proposed is a solid wall, which will mitigate sound and light. And then additionally, we have evergreens being planted at 7-foot centers on that, columnar evergreens, which will provide additional screening along that area, also reducing sound, light, other issues. That will be decorative, and staff has reviewed that and feels that this is actually exceeds our current standard of that landscape and the noise for that mitigation of what it's there for is that buffering and screening. Several conditions have been applied for that residential adjacency. This will be the only commercial use. This cannot expand out of that 450 as part of this condition. The trash will be screened in the back. That's RMC code, but to ensure that is happening on how that happens. Big one here is we're limiting those hours of operation between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Our normal hours of operation, they are allowed by right to 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. So they're really restricting that. So that's really cutting down on a lot of that interference or any impacts we'd potentially see in the evening. Construction is going to be limited as they're moving through that. There's going to be no amplified music outdoors, so no ability to have music or other amplified, no live entertainment outdoors. They'll be required to use dark sky lighting, and then their signage is limited on how they can sign. Just looking at the the parking and the actually conversion of what's happening here. Part of the way that we can help so they have submitted an alternative study that allows that per RMC they're allowed to do that allows them to reduce their overall parking. They've come back with a study because of the proximity of the university, size, different things happening that they are proposing no parking be provided, and this really become a walkable realm. Doing that, we've made some constraints or put some conditions on them to ensure that this is what this becomes. That's limiting those seats to 16, so it is just a little small neighborhood coffee shop. We're increasing their required bicycle parking, so we're really making sure that bike parking and that is prioritized. Removing that curve cut apron and installing that parkway, as I mentioned, on the front. That is kind of big as we see those backing movements and other things. As I mentioned, there are some developments that are coming into that area, and that will require a signalization at that Evans point and the cross street there. And so that's really going to limit how traffic's going to move and back up, loading zones, parking along that frontage. So that, because of that signalization, there really wouldn't be allowed to have parking along the street curb in front of that area. They'll have to obtain a tree work permit and plant trees per city standards, of course. The back driveway will have to comply with our new codes, and they'll have to update that if needed. And then that fence is going to be reduced down to 4 feet in height just for a safety issue of cars going in and out of that area. So staff did analyze this, look through all the required findings, was able to make all of them. And with that, I will leave you with this motion and available for questions as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. Appreciate it. We will start with disclosures from the commissioners. Commissioner Johnson, please.
Commissioner Johnson, very familiar with the site.
Commissioner Villanueva, familiar with the site.
Commissioner Velto, familiar with the site?
Commissioner Armstrong, I'm familiar with the site.
Commissioner Gower, also familiar with the site.
Commissioner Draculich, familiar with the site. Okay, we'll now open up for public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms, voicemails?
I did not receive any request to speak forms, no voicemails, and no correspondence was received.
Thank you. Anybody in the chambers wish to speak at public comment on this item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move it to the commissioners for questions of the applicant, staff, or discussion.
Mr. Chair, if there's no questions, I do have just a comment.
Please.
It's my final meeting. I'm going to comment as I want to. Actually, I am incredibly happy to see this project coming through. We were the architects for the engineering building immediately across the street from this, and the entire concept behind that building was to allow for pedestrian access from the east side of the site directly onto campus. And it has been incredibly successful based on the point now that somebody actually wants to put a coffee shop there because of the level of pedestrian activity that is there. So I think, as a, proud poppy of my building, I'm happy to see that it is having that effect. So based on that, I am willing to make the motion for this project. Case number LDC 23-00050, the Evans Avenue Coffee Shop. Based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the conditional use permit with the request for the alternative equivalent compliance, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, and I can make all the findings.
Chair,
Yes.
I
please.
have some comments to make, if that's okay.
Please, go ahead.
So I disagree. I think it's not compatible with the area. I think it's multifamily and there's a lot of housing in that area. And generally, yes, I am super supportive of, walkability, cycling, lack of parking. limited parking. But in this case, I just don't think it's compatible with that area. That's all residential. There's houses right there. The school's across the street. There's a lot of, with commercial, there's a ton of commercial within the university. I think it's called the University District. I just don't think this is a compatible space for it. And I can't make the findings, so I am going to be a no on this one.
Okay, we have a motion, but let's keep the discussion going or questions. Feel free, Commissioner Armstrong.
I agree with Commissioner Johnson. I was an alumni of the University of Nevada. It was sad to see Bebo go before I graduated. I think this is a nice addition to the area. I'm happy to see something creative like this. I think city's done a good job of mitigating some of the traffic and parking concerns just by putting in guardrails that make it difficult to park there and promote it as like a walkable or cyclable area. So I am happy to support the project.
And I just have a question, but any other comments from Commissioner Vilto? Just a quick one for you, Brooke, if you don't mind. Did we have any feedback from neighbors, any kickback? I didn't see any comments before we got here or in the staff report, if you want to touch on that.
Sure. This project was managed by Associate Planner Leah Brock. She did take on some comments that came in from neighboring as we put out those postcards and that, answering questions and sort of addressing some of those questions. Outside of any sort of negative feedback or anything like that, nothing that we're not hearing from someone tonight or they haven't continued to write in.
Okay, great, thank you. With that said, we have a motion from Commissioner Johnson. If we would like to second or any more discussion.
Commissioner Armstrong, I'll second if there's no discussion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion passes 5-1. Good luck on your project. Thank you. All right, closing item 6.2, we'll move on to item 6.3, case number LDC 23-00062, Viewpoint Apartments Access Road, MSPR. Looks like we're going to take a presentation from the applicant.
Good evening. For the record, Dave Snellgrove with CFA, and I'm joined this evening with the applicant and owner, Mr. Don Pinard. He's with Montebello 2LP, and we also have Christine Siegfried and Bob Skiff as other representatives of the owner. So the property in question entails 3 parcels for a total of 97.97 acres. This is up by the Home Depot in Northwest Reno, south of the freeway. There's kind of an odd north boundary. That's where the Harrah's billboards are located. It's an odd Harrah's owned property. And we are to the west side of McCarran Boulevard. We've requested a major site plan review for cuts and fills. Specifically, the cuts are in excess of 20 feet and fills in excess of 10 feet, but we've only got about 4,800 square feet in total of the 3.5 acres or so that actually affects that's bringing us to you today. So it's a very small area. This would be for an access road for an approved project. Back last year, trying to remember which month we were in, August or September of last year, we went through a conditional use permit for a 432 unit apartment project, which was basically a continuation of something that was approved about 28 years ago, give or take. The Montebello apartments were phase 1. I'll go through a map on that. This access road is intended to provide day-to-day traffic, ultimately, in and out of the Viewpoint Apartments. It would also provide for a construction access route, which is vitally important to get to the back side of this property, because as you can see, it's kind of on a peninsula out there coming in from the east. And it would also we do have an emergency access point that comes out onto the little loop road that goes down to McCarran Boulevard as part of this. So here's the zoning of the property. The property is zoned MF14, allowing for the apartment uses on the site. As mentioned before, the Montebello apartments, which are to the right-hand side to the east, those are constructed. The Viewpoint apartments have been approved, but will still need to be constructed. This is a copy of the original map that was approved. This was under case number 7995, which is a very old case number. It was under Oasis the Bluffs, that had a total of 864 units approved. All of that was feeding out through one access point, and then that was approved that way at that time, and the access point was allowed during that time. I've got a slide that'll go over that in greater detail. What you can see from the past work that was done, the Montebello apartments are fully constructed, and there's a couple roads that point out that would feed into the Viewpoint apartments that would have been considered part of the Oasis Bluffs Montebello site in the past, but we've renamed that, and that'll be a different product that's up there. You can see on this map that there's been a lot of earthwork that's been done. There's grading, and you can see a semblance of the roadway pattern. Well, that's important because a lot of the utilities were already put in place. I think pretty much all of them. The conduits are there, the sewer lines there, the water lines are there. They were all put in the ground in anticipation of moving forward, and it halted at some point. And that'll be important later in my discussion, that the utility lines and all those improvements are in fact there. This is the access point that serves the Montebello apartments currently, and this was the access point that was approved previously for the Oasis project back in the 95 case. The dual median separated access, that was an allowed fire access at one point. It gave you one way up and one way down, and you weren't anticipating you were going to have blockage of both. It gave a separation. It gave appropriate turnarounds for fire vehicles. I think even some of the longer term members of the Planning Commission don't recall when this was allowed, but this outdates your tenure. But this went away probably 15 plus or minus years ago, maybe a little more. That's been one of the challenges on the site is getting a secondary access, getting a fire access. We do have one proposed with this, and I'll go over that as we go through the presentation. But this shows the access points. The green arrows were where the access was supposed to go. Originally, and actually the way we kind of had it proposed when we came forward with Viewpoint. The yellow line up on top goes across part of the Harris property and goes over to the Home Depot property, over to the eastern side, and then it would access out onto Sierra Ridge Drive. And that is one that we were anticipating to be our construction access. We were in discussions with Home Depot during this time, and they said, no, we don't want to have construction access go through there. So it sounded like things were going to be good on getting just the emergency access through. There's already an emergency access for the Harris property, and there's also an emergency access crossing the Home Depot property for the senior apartments or the senior housing project that is just up adjacent to our site. So we didn't think that was going to be a big deal until they went on radio silence on us. So it kind of threw us into a big quandary. First, we couldn't have construction access through there, and we were trying to figure out a way to get construction equipment in there easily, especially some of the larger equipment. And we ended up coming up with this roadway, which is the blue arrows back and forth. And basically, it runs just south of the existing disturbance area. You've got a pedestrian access. There's a pedestrian trail that'll show up better in one of my later slides that will be just downhill from that. That pedestrian trail won't be connected to this road. It'll actually be separated. There's a landscape. There's quite a number of trees, which I'll point out on one of the later slides. Well, this slide right here. Staff has requested through condition that our trees, because of our lineal footage of the road, it requires 172 total trees, and that's putting them in place at one tree every 30 lineal feet of the road. And we've got that on each side. So it's 172 trees, and rather than providing them in this very linear, regulated fashion, we agree with staff that it would make more sense to have these grouped as the trees up on the hill already are. And so that is one of the conditions, I believe it's condition number 5, that identifies that we need to do grouping of the trees rather than staggering them, or rather than spacing them out very regularly. On this access road, as you come up toward the main access point off of Summit Ridge Drive, We'd proposed, there's already a maintenance access road that comes out there, and we'd proposed an emergency access to be located there. Trey Palmer, we've had a couple discussions with him with the fire department, and he still wants to have an emergency access point to go out through Home Depot. Our challenge is we're not in control of the timeframes of Home Depot. We do believe that we can get that other access. We just don't know what time frame it'll be in, and that puts us in quite a challenge relative to this access road. So we will have an emergency access that comes out. And I will point out that just construction of this road doesn't create any occupancy or any particular need for that secondary access. We would have a point out there. It's not what the fire department wants at the end of the project, and we believe that we can get that. So this slide just shows the grouping of the trees that exist on the hill right now, and we'll need to provide something in similar fashion so they're not quite so regular. As mentioned before, there was development that came down off of the hill to provide the pedestrian path and the planting that's there. And we're going to extend that down and have to do appropriate planting and revegetation. The bottom two pictures show the edge of the existing pedestrian path, and it basically shows the grades of the land through part of the land where the access road would go just downhill from this pedestrian path that exists. Mentioned before that we're just under 4,800 total square feet of area that's tripping us into a major site plan review. So I've circled those two areas, the cuts, and they're very hard to see on the map, but I have it pointed out on the right-hand image, the top left arrow. There's really a blue hazed area in there that's kind of hard to see, but there is a little area that equates to about 56 plus square feet. And then the purple areas, which stand out much, much better, equate to a total of 4,750 or so square feet. So it's those areas that are tripping us into a major site plan review out of the whole 3.46 acres that we're disturbing. So this is the cumulative, and that that says 4.8. That 4,800 square feet of area that trips us into this equates to only 0.11 acres, which is 3.2% of our overall development area. So it's a very small fraction. I'd mentioned some things about emergency access, and the staff had put a condition on this project, but we also changed the timing through discussions over the past week. Changed the timing relative to the Viewpoint Apartments. This is what was approved, and I think it's dated as of 2 days ago. Prior to the issuance, it used to say of the first certificate of occupancy. We changed that to prior to the issuance of a building permit for vertical construction. We have to provide an emergency access subject to the satisfaction of the administrator. So we did change that timing. We agreed to do that. We felt that was appropriate and reasonable to do, but we were anticipating that ultimately we weren't going to have a condition for emergency access on this access road itself. So condition 8, we are requesting that condition be removed from this application, from this project. We do want to have this approved. If you feel at the end of the day that we need to retain that in there, we would prefer having the approval over getting rid of that. However, I do hope that you agree with us on getting rid of this. And some reasons for that is, one, I mentioned before that the access road on its own doesn't create any occupancy in association with it. Two, it creates a timing issue for us. Those utilities that are in the ground, before we get going on any of the standard construction work that'll need to be done to get the property ready to actually go to vertical construction, there's a lot of upgrade to the utilities that's going to have to be done, which is a surface and subsurface work. We've got to be able to get equipment out there, and this road allows us to do that. So timing is critical to be able to get out there onto the site. We do believe that the timing of this condition conflicts with the timing of what was just amended through the minor modification that I just showed on the previous slide. The timing of that one says prior to issuance of building permit for vertical construction, and this one says prior to the issuance of any grading permit. This one trumps everything and would hold us up immensely. Also, the access road takes any construction traffic off of the existing drive aisles that are in the Montebello area, which is a positive to the existing neighborhood that's there. We would be able to get some of the smaller equipment through there, some of the larger equipment. We really need this access road because Home Depot has been clear that they don't want construction traffic to go through their property. So with that, a lot of this becomes down to timing issues. I'll see if Bob Skiff would like to make any comments regarding this. He's sitting behind me. He knows more on the construction end and some of the challenges this presents.
Go ahead, Bob, you have about 3 minutes.
No worries. This won't take very long. I'm Bob Skiff. I'm here to try to clarify what's really happening here. What ordinarily happens when you're building an apartment site like this, you start with a mass grading, and then we're putting in our pads, and we're putting in our streets, and we're doing all of that. This all happened 27 years ago. What we have is all the underground is in, and our only way to check it is to build this construction access road to bring in backhoes only. There's going to be no grading. There's not going to be anything. We're just going to have our road and do this so we can submit it to the city so they can approve the underground that we're actually redoing some of it where it will collapse. Okay, there's just, we ran some cameras through there probably a year and a half ago, and it showed some areas in the, the sewer where it had collapsed. But everything else, 100% of everything is there, most of it conduit, okay? But we still have to make sure that it's in good standing and that it's compactable. So that's why we use backhoes, and we need the construction road because we can't take that stuff through the Montebello apartments. So I can answer any questions. I know a lot about this. So Angela, you want to talk about it?
And to clarify too, Bob mentioned construction. The first use of this would be for construction purposes, and then it would get formalized for the day-to-day use that would come at the end. I want to make sure that that was clear in the presentation.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. You all done? Okay, great, thank you. We will get a presentation from Brooke.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Once again, Brooke Oswald, Associate Planner. Case before you is LDC 23-00062, the Viewpoint Apartments, Access Road, and Major Site Plan Review. Looking at the project site, went over, it's about a 100-acre site, but we're really looking at that total 100-acre site. What is being proposed tonight is about 3.5 acres. It is for that major site plan review for the access road, and that's being triggered by those cuts and fills. We have those cuts steeper than 20 feet and the fills greater than 10 feet in height, which triggers that. To look at the overall general site, to kind of have an idea, you have I-80 to the north of the site, the Home Depot site that was mentioned, and McCarran. It's right on that loop area there where you loop back in off of McCarran. Directly below the site is the Tumwa facility. And then to the left of the site, you can see the large portion of vacant land. That is known as the Robb Drive area. We have a project after this. You've seen some other projects there. So we're kind of in that same proximity and area. The zoning of this is MF14. Kind of went through those generally. We have the general commercial. There's a fairly mix of residential, commercial, public facility with the Tumwa, even though it is a general commercial. We're seeing that large lot residential one to the other side of the site. We do have a request in right now to modify that zoning with it's the Heiser permit that's in right now. We're anticipating that will come back as an SPD or a specific plan district, and we would see potentially light industrial, residential, possibly commercial in that area. Big key issues here is that overall site design and the compatibility with the existing residences. So this is what is currently proposed. There's an interesting history that was mentioned. This was originally approved back in 1995. They built out 450 units of that were built out around that time in 97. And then that back end has sat vacant for 20 plus years at this point. They did come back in 2022, it was before this commission, for a conditional use permit to allow for that multifamily housing on that project. although those conditions were just previously shown. There is that modification, minor modification that happened there, taking that from the occupancy, so the residents are built or the multifamilies built, it's taking that back that they have to have that second access before they can go vertical on anything, giving us an assurance that we're not getting homes or vertical construction in the ground and not having proper fire access. Once again, showing that roadway, there is some impact to an existing stormwater system. They are proposing to fill some of that. There's another area within the circle, the basin directly to the right. You can see on that upper that they will be they're proposing to basically from a one-to-one modify that storm drainage over there. There's an existing pedestrian path that runs just above this that will be maintained. So we do have pedestrian access that currently runs up through that way. And then limiting those construction hours back to make sure that those existing residents are not disturbed. Just so this makes sense to everyone, that bottom little leg ties on to the far left and goes up to the project site there. Looking at that existing landscape, looking up the hill as it is the hillside, we do have a number of evergreen trees. Our current standard would require 172 trees along that 2,000 plus linear feet of roadway. The condition that has been put on that is to really cluster those and go to a heavier evergreen to provide more screening from light and also fit into a lot of the existing landscape there. Staff did review this. Staff can make all the findings, and I will leave you with the following motion.
Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move to the commissioners for disclosures. Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Commissioner Gower. No disclosures.
Commissioner Armstrong, no disclosures.
Commissioner Velto, I spoke with the applicant's representative, noted the disclosures.
Commissioner Villanueva, no disclosures.
Commissioner Johnson, no disclosures.
Commissioner Draculich, familiar with the area and the site. All right, closing that, we will open up public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak forms, voicemails? Anybody on Zoom?
No request to speak forms, no voicemails, and no correspondence received for this item.
Thank you. Anybody in the chambers wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move it to the commissioners for questions of the applicant or staff.
I have a quick
Commissioner Lloyd,
question
please.
for staff, please. You mentioned this application or a sister application was brought before us in 2022. Do you know approximately when? In 2022?
Let me see if it's in the staff report.
I think it said August.
In August.
Okay.
Yep.
I will have more questions, but not right now.
Okay, we'll take a moment, please.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions.
Commissioner Gower, go ahead.
Brooke and potentially Dave too. I'm trying to understand what the issue is here with these conditions. I don't think I quite understand. So can you just talk through that one more time? So
Certainly.
try it
And
again.
so originally when the staff report was written, it was what we wanted to ensure is that we didn't get vertical construction and not have that secondary access. So that condition was written to basically say, you can't build this road until you have a secondary access, right? You can't build your primary access until we know we have a secondary access. What has come in, a minor modification has come in, and that's modifying that original CUP related to the development itself. That previously said, you can go ahead and build, you have to have secondary access before you can get a certificate of occupancy. What we've done is taken that all the way back and said, you can't go vertical until we have that secondary access. What that does is give us a little bit more comfort that we're not going to get the roadway build and construction happen and a number of the things as primary access as they goes forward. And so that changes things on sort of the timing. And as was mentioned by the applicant's representative, this primary access is important to them for that construction. They haven't been able to do it on the other side. They have some preliminary work they need to do up there with the old infrastructure and making sure that that it all meets current standards and a number of that. And so that, I hope that helps to kind of make sense of why things have transitioned in that way and the assurance we have now with that previous amendment to that condition.
So Dave, that's what you're asking for, is a change to the previous condition. You don't have an issue with the conditions in the staff report that's being presented to us.
He does have the current one, because the current one says they can't build the roadway until they have a secondary access, and that limits them from doing that preliminary work. So we modified the initial one to say you can't build anything vertical until you have your secondary, but you can build your primary to do your construction work.
So what's the secondary access?
They are still working on that, and I will let Dave speak to his options on that.
We have a couple points, and I don't know if you can bring the presentation back up. Let me go to this slide here, and this was actually in the slide when I came forward. Actually, it looks like it might have been June 13th that we came through, but my date on the bottom. What this shows, this blue dashed line is the one that we're in process working with First American Title Company and trying to reach out. We have to cross both the Harris property and the Home Depot property and get back out to Summit Ridge Drive. I had shown this previously and identified that one of our possible solutions would be to go to the south of the Montebello Apartments and connect out to the loop. And another possibility, and you're going to hear a case after this, in the Robb Drive project. One of the challenges with the Robb Drive project, that linkage, is it goes across federal highway lands. It's actually part of the interstate highway. I had spoken to Sorry about that. I had spoken to Alex Wolfson when he was at NDOT, and he said we could go through all this, and he'd seen it before where everything was looking good from our end. They send it over to FHWA, and FHWA out of hand just says, no, we're not going to do that. And he said that could be 1.5 to 2 years into the process. You're walking along thinking you're going to get it, and all of a sudden the rug it's pulled out from under you. Obviously, if we're having a time issue with this and the condition that says this is not only we can't build the road, we can't go out and do any grading to get construction access in there to do that utility work that Mr. Skiff talked more substantially about. So there is already a condition on the apartments themselves that says we can't go vertical with that until we have the the access that the staff and fire department want is that blue dashed line. That's one that we're not wholly in control of because we've got Home Depot. We've had conversations with Harris in the past, and that seems like that had been going well, but Home Depot, as I mentioned before, seemed to be going along fine, and then all of a sudden went radio silence on us. So we're hopeful that we can get them back and talk to them about this, but we do have, I mentioned we will have a second access that gets past the choke point. The concern from the fire department was that intersection at Summit Ridge Drive and the entry into this apartment. They said, if there was something that happened there, you need to have a different point where you can come out that doesn't tie in directly with that intersection. So that choke point was the big concern. This distance away from that intersection is similar to what the other distance is on this map. You can see where the blue dash line comes out and where this purple line comes out. They're about the same distance from that choke point intersection. In talking to Trey Palmer yesterday, he said, because we can't meet, and there's really just no way we can meet 1/2 of the hypotenuse. That's the distance separation that you're supposed to have, 1/2 of the hypotenuse of the property. There's just no way to meet it out on this peninsula. That he said he wants to have this access that we're proposing on the purple line, which is before you tonight, as well as the Home Depot access. That'll give us 3 points of access and give him good justification that even though we can't meet what the standard would be, we've got plenty of access here. Well, we'd actually be providing at that point 3 points of access.
Okay.
So the concern that we have is condition 8 on this tonight, because there's already a requirement that the secondary access be provided before we go vertical on the apartments themselves. And that's when occupancy does come into play. With this, we're talking about a construction road first and foremost, which will turn in ultimately to the primary access in and out of Viewpoint. But initially, we need to be able to get out there and grade. So it really potentially slows us down a lot if Home Depot doesn't act quickly on that other secondary access. Because again, we have one already shown on here, and then we'd have a third one would be, or secondary access, sounds weird, would be on that blue dashed line. So long and short is we already have a secondary access that's required, and that's with the apartments. We'd request respectfully that you take condition 8 off of this item and leave it where it's appropriately placed with the apartments.
And Mr. Chair, if I may expand, Angela Foos, Assistant Director for Development Services, and we've had a lot of conversations, so maybe just to expand on this as well. That blue dashed line is the required fire emergency access. And so that goes through Home Depot. If they are not able to get that agreement, none of this project can go forward. So that this whole project, the apartments that were already approved a year ago, this access road that they're talking about in pink, none of this can happen until they have that fire connection and fire agreement through Home Depot. So from staff's perspective, again, we support the project, we recommended approval. The concern is if Home Depot doesn't agree to give them an access easement for fire, and they come in and they cut up the mountainside, it's all for nothing. So now we've just degraded a mountainside, a hillside, for no reason. So from staff's perspective, yes, we support you doing that. However, we want to make sure that you're going to get that recorded secondary fire access agreement from Home Depot before you start damaging this hillside. And if you cannot get it, again, none of this can happen. But if you can, then great, then you can move forward. So that's why we added this specific condition related to that pink road that they're proposing tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate all of that clarification. No, I think I'm good. I think I've got all of the clarification that I need for my question. If other commissioners have questions, I'll let them answer it, but I'm good.
You sure you don't want me to answer? Because there's
I'm good.
been one thing that's left
I'm good
out.
on my question.
What's that?
I'm good on my question.
All right.
Thank you.
Chair, may I?
Please do.
Question for staff or the applicant, whoever has the answer. Can you run us through what happened at the last meeting? Because I'm trying to remember, because this project seems very familiar, and I remember having concerns about this. And I'm pretty sure I voted no, but I don't know because I can't find the minutes. But I think this was actually the exact concern that I had, was that this was going to be an issue, and that's why I was a no.
Yeah, so the project was approved, subject to that condition that they have that secondary access. So I think the big thing here is when this whole thing came through of 800 units, 20 plus years ago, fire access was different and they had different standards. Those standards have changed in 20 years and we require that secondary access with that. And so it changes the project. And so they do need to have that secondary access per our fire department before they can move forward. And that's why we had the condition, and the condition is on there that secondary access has to be done prior to now at vertical construction. If there is more on the fire, we do have a representative from the fire department here. If it's specific about fire questions, then they can add a higher level of detail than I can.
Can you tell me how I voted? I can't find it in the
I can't remember, and I don't have specifically on that. I can try to go back and find the minutes, or I think Angela is trying to look for the minutes.
I tried
now.
to, I couldn't,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sir, please hold. Thank you. Okay. Commissioners, further questions while Angela does a little digging? We do have fire here. Was I correct? Does anybody have questions for them?
I guess, Commissioner Johnson, I have a follow-up probably for Angela, just from the explanation that she had. So I think this is interesting because when it came through before, the primary access was indicated to be coming through the existing complex.
Correct.
And so I guess, and I don't want to speak in hypotheticals here, but what you brought up is making me go that way. in the sense that if that initial one came through, and maybe this was where my question was before your comment was, why not amend this roadway into the original request for, since it's going to be the primary access? Because when I first started looking at this, I'm like, okay, it's the primary access. It's coming in at a different point. What kind of changes to the layout are going to be concerned? So I guess that's my question is why wasn't staff, why wouldn't we have opened up the original approval again to reincorporate this? Because now this is being deemed as the primary access, which is a different situation than the way it was presented before. So I guess that's the kind of the question I'm going with, which then would lead into a follow-up.
So they can build the apartments today without this road, only if they can show that blue dashed line that goes through Home Depot. Their project doesn't need this pink road that we're talking about today. However, because they don't want to have all the construction traffic going through an existing apartment complex, this definitely helps. So it's not required for their project to move forward. It's more of they're electing to do it to help get the construction trucks in there, and they can use it as another point of access for their apartment owners or tenants to get in and out. But regardless of if this road goes in, yes or no, it still does not meet our fire code requirements. And I think that's the difference, is that they have to have that Home Depot access in order to meet our fire code requirements.
Okay, and that, I understand that from, based on where you're going. I guess that's where I'm kind of working my way backwards to the question about the condition that's on there. And questioning, I guess, if this would have come through originally with this roadway as the primary access. The comment is there still would have been a secondary access. However, under that scenario, all of this work could have been done up to the point of certificate of occupancy for that secondary access.
Correct. And again, we would not have issued a certificate of occupancy, so no one can move into that apartment until they prove that they have that Home Depot fire access.
Okay, so that was, my trying to understand how this didn't reopen the one before it was confusing to me. So now I understand why.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sylvia, why we didn't go to that point, so.
And it could have. So, I mean, keep in mind too, so they have an approved project. They could go forward with that today. So on one hand, we don't want to take away that opportunity of something we've already given them. They have an approved project. They can go today. But again, they can't do anything until they have that recorded access from Home Depot.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Any further questions? Looks like we want to move into discussion. Yeah, I will. Commissioner Draculich, ultimately, I remember this item back then. I remember that emergency access road being vital to all of us, if not a heavy part of the conversation. So I understand that. I understand the shift they're making. And I do support having that condition still in there. It still seems to make a lot of sense to me. I don't know what other good resolution we could help with, but that's kind of where I'm standing right now.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm with you. I mean, I understand the applicant's concern with the timing scenario, but I mean, as Angela articulated, if you can't get that roadway, the secondary access, you build what you're calling now the primary access, it's going to lead to nowhere potentially for another 25 years until you can get the secondary access. I mean, I think we need that level of assurance before you move forward with the grading. And that's what condition 8 is in there to do, as I understand it. So that makes complete sense to me from a city standpoint. Again, I understand the concern from the applicant's standpoint. I understand why you're probably not in favor of that.
If we're done with discussion, open to entertaining a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. In case number LDC 23-00062, Viewpoint Apartments Access Road, major site plan review based upon compliance with the applicable findings. I move to approve the major site plan review subject to conditions listed in the staff report, and I can make all the findings.
We have a motion.
Commissioner Veltwell, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you.
All right, closing item 6.3, moving on to item 6.4, case number LDC 23-00059, Rob Drive Extension, MSPR. Looks like we're going to take a presentation from the applicant's representative, Andy Durling.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Andy Durling with Wood Rogers, representing the Rob Drive Mixed Use Major Site Plan Review. Josh Soph with FJ Management, the property owner, is also with me tonight to help answer any questions. This is major site plan review for both hillside development as well as cuts and fills that exceed the 20 and 10-foot thresholds. The project's located just to the west of what you just saw at the existing terminus of Rob Drive at the interchange with Interstate 80. Looking a little closer, you see that interchange, the existing, terminus of Rob Drive there. This parcel has had some grading disturbances. It's been part of an approved grading permit and previous special use permits for cuts and fills to use this site as a borrow facility, both for kind of public works projects it's been used for, as well as for the project to the west of this, which was the TCA project that was in front of you back in January of this year, which were 3 projects were approved as part of the TCA property. This property is master plan suburban mixed use and has an existing zoning of general commercial. The major site plan review for the hillside development, the exhibit shown on the screen is that slope analysis map. Essentially, looking at sort of the southwest quadrant and the southeast quadrant of the site. Those are those natural 30% slopes. The red areas that you kind of see in between are kind of remnants of that existing grading operation that's been ongoing for many years now. So it has been previously disturbed, and really what we're looking at is to grade out some future pads and extend Rob Drive in order to facilitate future development. In doing so, we're looking to preserve those areas in the southwest and the southeast. The extension, as shown here, you got a little bit of a preview of this with the TCA properties, albeit at that time it was a fairly generic connection that we were showing. It was kind of to be determined to a certain degree as far as the actual roadway alignments go. So this is giving a little bit more clarity to that future roadway. So Rob Drive essentially extends south in a kind of curvilinear fashion to a roundabout, and then you'd have essentially 2 collector roads taking off from there, one heading to the west along the south side of that west pad to serve the TCA property, and then another one heading to the east to serve the S3 Rob Drive. As I think Brooke mentioned previously, we currently have an SPD under review with the staff on that, and hopefully in the coming months we'll be in front of you with that project as well. At this time, really, we're just doing the grading. It's the major site plan review to establish the grading of these pads. It does require quite a bit of mass grading in order to, cut some of those areas. Mostly, it's a lot of cut. So the uses are unknown at this time. We did supply a trip generation, a kind of an abridged traffic letter to give you an idea of just the planning that's going into this in anticipation of the future uses on this entire south side. In order to size the Rob Drive extension, the roadway, make sure it's sized appropriately. So for this area, what we've anticipated at this time, again, subject to change, but would be a shopping center, possibly a hotel and a gas station, as well as some multifamily. So very typical uses that you would see right next to a freeway interchange. We don't think we're kind of going outside of the box on some of that, and feels like it's, is an anticipated type, mix of uses, at least hypothetically at this point. So depending on those uses, though, there could be future entitlements. So multifamily in particular, if we go over 100 units, we would be back in front of you with a conditional use permit. So there may be future entitlements on this site. Again, just ultimately dependent on those final uses that would come through. This is looking at the grading plan and showing those kind of, bits and pieces of those areas that have the cuts and fills. The pink areas are cut over 20 feet. The blue areas are fills over 10 feet. So it just kind of depends. Some of it's relevant to the past grading operations. Some of it's based on the existing, or the natural, I will call it, contours. We do have one retaining wall that is located on it's really hard without a mouse to point at things, but along that southeast quadrant where just east of the roundabout as the road is curving back to the north, we do have a retaining wall there. It's shown, it ranges from essentially nothing up to 8 feet maximum. And so what we have talked about with staff, the staff report, we're in agreement with the staff report and the conditions by and large. Condition number 6 in particular, though, the last sentence mentions that retaining walls have to be a maximum of 6 feet in height. In this location, we already had it shown at 8 feet, and if we were to go to tiered walls with a maximum of 6 feet, it would actually create more disturbance in this area because that's in that cut area, and if you look just to the south of that, it's relatively steep existing slopes that are to the south of us. So we respectfully request that the Planning Commission consider striking the last sentence of Condition 6. We've talked to staff, and I believe they're comfortable with it and can attest to that. As we mentioned and presented to you during the TCA property entitlements and approvals, there are essentially 4 property owners on the south side of Interstate 80, the TCA property, this Robb Drive mixed use, which is controlled by FJ Management, the S3 development, which is controlled by Blake Smith, who's also here tonight, and then the Simons property. So we have been working together with the majority of those property owners, in particular TCA, FJ, and S3 have all been working together on, cost sharing agreements and really trying to plan this out in a comprehensive manner. And so this is kind of what's anticipated as kind of part of those developments, and that went into the determination of the overall traffic generation. So we have prepared an overall traffic report. And like I said, an abridged version was submitted with this, but a full version has been submitted to NDOT that looks at all of the traffic generated here to determine what the interchange improvements are. They haven't changed since we were here in January. Essentially, we will be extending the 4 lanes of Robb Drive to the south. There will be some modifications. It's a little hard to see, but in the bottom left corner picture there, it's showing the line work for the future interchange. A new signalized intersection on the south terminal there, a new signalized intersection on the north side of Interstate 80, some additional turn lanes, things like that. That's the ultimate build out. It could be phased. When we were here with TCA, they had kind of a very small portion of that, and it could be phased if they were to come first. Ultimately, though, this is a build out, and then the table on the right side there identifies all the peak hour trips that would be generated by what's known at this time, or what's anticipated, I should say, at this time, to serve all 4 properties. And so essentially 3,300, just over 3,300 total peak hour trips in the PM. That's the kind of controlling factor. The existing trips at Robb Drive, so all the development in the McQueen area that's coming down is a little over 1,000 trips. TCA is taking up 240 trips. The S3 Robb Drive is 635 trips. The Robb Drive mixed use, so the case in front of you tonight, is just over 800 trips, and ultimately leaving about 570 trips of additional capacity that would be available to, say, Simons in this particular case, for that overall interchange and the intersections there. And like I said, those improvements can be phased, albeit because the property owners are working together and working on cost sharing. We're anticipating, more than likely the roadway will be built in kind of one phase, but the signals and things like that could be phased over time because NDOT ultimately wants to see both signals go in at the same time, and they want to see the signals go in when the warrants are there for them. So you wouldn't see them kind of come out of the gate. It would be as development actually starts to occur, vertical development starts to occur, that those signals would probably be installed. So we are working with NDOT. Like I said, a full-blown traffic study has been submitted to them. We've been working with them for the past, call it 6 to 9 months. About 3-4 weeks ago, we submitted an ICE analysis, which is that intersection control evaluation. So it looks at the intersections themselves, determines what the most appropriate mitigation is. So that's been submitted. It's kind of a higher level modeling effort that goes into the intersections. That's been submitted to NDOT as well. So we're waiting for their feedback and ultimate approval, but ultimately, to remind you, the control of access, so our ability to get access to NDOT's facility was purchased. It exists, it's there. Ultimately, right at this point, we're trying to determine what it needs to look like. So the signals, the lanes, the turn lanes, all of that. So that's been submitted. We're working through that process with them. Ultimately, it has to be approved by NDOT and then Federal Highways Administration as well. And with that concludes our presentation. So we are in agreement with the staff report with the caveat that we would like to see condition 6 modified to strike the final sentence, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And now presentation from Brooke from the city.
Good evening again, Brooke Oswald, Associate Planner. Quickly go over the site. It's about 50-acre site directly off Robb Drive. Surrounding properties are vacant. We have a process to the left or to the west of the site, the TCA properties, that's townhomes, multifamily. We saw some single family as we went down further down the hill to be more appropriate to those homes. What this is a major site plan review. We're looking at those cuts deeper than 20 feet in depth. It fills great and fill. We also have, because it is over that 10 acres, it does trigger our hillside development. And so the big thing we're looking at this is that because it is general commercial, we're not regulating the density, but what we are regulating is that open space and making sure we're having those open space requirements. I also mentioned the Heiser project. We are currently looking at this. We have been, and as we spoke before, we're looking at this North Robb Drive area as a whole. That's making sure we have proper fire access, making sure we continue to look at those traffic. That's probably one of the bigger things, is that traffic onto I-80 and Robb Drive and how that happens. So we're monitoring this and have been working together with the applicant to ensure that all the pieces are going to fit on this. It is general commercial. The applicant's representative proposed a few uses, but that does provide a multitude of uses. That could be from multifamily to traditional commercial uses. We'd anticipate it being directly off an off-ramp, and we would see probably similar development that we're seeing across to the north of hotels, gas stations, retail, small commercial. Master plan, we're looking at that concurrency management system, so bringing that on. We do have the infrastructure, roadways, connectivity is there. Those neighborhood connections, as this builds out, we're going to have those connections running through those developments we have to both the east and west of this. And then also, as we see those improvements, we'll see pedestrian and other connectivity to the north, over to the other projects to the north. Working through our grading policies and making sure we're doing those, and then those larger network connections that we're looking at, especially that the interplay with I-80. This is looking at that Robb Drive South development, looking at that as a whole. Our project site being the blue and outlined there, you can see really it is that main backbone infrastructure that's going to provide the connectivity to really the entire upper site. The arrow to the right, that's the project we just spoke about. That access is challenging any sort of secondary access of that because of there is a large drainage there, very steep slopes, and then we have the NDOT and the Federal Highways issues that we'd have the connectivity there. We do anticipate that we would see a secondary, and we will require a secondary to the right there off the orange parcel. There are different proposals on how that would come through. On the 3 parcels to the west, where the arrow is there is where that emergency, it is limited to an emergency access only, so we do have an emergency access plan for that area to come down off of there. Quickly look at the project itself. It really is grading to establish 2 pads. We don't have a development project at this point, but there is that west pad and that east pad. There are conditions within the staff report that require that working intimately with NDOT, RTC, and all of that, making sure that happens. We have a master study that's coming in. There's a study that requires when we see development that will have to be updated and lead in to make sure we're hitting those trigger points to see those offsite improvements that are going to be required. As far as the open space is in the green there, it was analyzed by staff, and they do meet, per their development, they do meet the open space requirement that is required. As Andy showed, the site has been very disturbed. We've seen activity on the site for quite some time. Those steeper slopes that were shown previously on the slope map, you can see that those are not where development is. They've avoided those areas. Those become our open space and preserved in open space areas. And some of those other fills and largely cut out of this area are coming from some of the disturbed areas. Staff did review this as we are continuing to review this area, could make all the findings. I believe a phone call or a public comment was received today that was forwarded to the Planning Commission. I also did speak with them personally today and spoke. Their main concerns were light, noise, as was kind of shown. This is a very isolated parcel. We have a great amount of distance and topography between those surrounding residents. As we see that development, as we move down there, we actually de-intensify the uses, going down to single-family uses and that. But with that, RMC has a number of requirements that we'll be looking at: screening, buffering, making sure light glare in that is, and also mitigating any sound. So I did speak with them and said that we will look at that as development comes in. With that, I'll leave you with the motion and available for questions as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, so as per Andy's request to strike that, staff did look at that and is in agreement that we could reduce some of the grading and some of the deeper impacts. Michelle, if you can turn on the overhead really quick. Just to give everyone an idea of what is being asked. This is condition 6. It's specifically dealing with our grading. The first part of it really is saying any retaining walls, riprap, need to come in and match that natural topography so we don't have some large cuts or scars, a very notable area. The bottom part was we do have some reference in our code that we prefer to see some rock walls, and that was originally being driven from there. In looking and discussing with the applicant, we do see the potential that a 8-foot solid wall there will minimize grading and overall impacts on that and will not have dramatic visual impacts. So staff is in agreement with the modification of that.
Thank you, Brooke. Appreciate it. All right, we'll go to the commissioners for disclosures. We'll start with Commissioner Goward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I spoke with the applicant's representative and am familiar with the site.
Commissioner Armstrong spoke with the applicant's representative and familiar with the site.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosures.
Commissioner Villanueva, no disclosures.
Commissioner Johnson spoke with the applicant's representative, received email, voicemail today, and familiar with the site.
Commissioner Draculich, familiar with the site and spoke with the applicant's representative. All right, done with disclosures. We open up to public comment. Michelle, any requests to speak forms, voicemails, or Zoom?
No request to speak forms received. No correspondence received. We did receive the voicemail, and we will play that now.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Burns, and I'm calling regarding LDC 23-00059 Robb Drive Extension MSPR. And my comment is that I live on 7440 West 4th Street, and I'm hoping that this project will be considerate of light pollution and sound pollution. It's quiet here, and I just hope that they'll follow like Juniper Ridge did with having restriction on light and at night especially. That's what I wanted to say. Thanks for your consideration.
Anything else, Michelle, on your end? Okay,
That's it on my end.
thank you. Anybody in the chambers wish to speak on public comment on this item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and go to the commissioners for questions of the applicant or staff or discussion. Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brooke, question for you on that change to condition number 6. So just for clarification, the 6 feet isn't a requirement in code.
No, it's not. We're looking at kind of preferred practice, and we were pushing that preferred practice, but looking at the implication and the site-specific constraints. Staff felt that actually potentially could cause more grading and more impact than the 8-foot wall. So it's a 2-foot higher wall, but that they would have to step out 2 walls and impact further grading down. And as you start to chase a hill, you just keep going down.
Right.
So.
Okay. And there's no sense in changing the maximum height in the condition to something other than 6 feet?
I mean, obviously that is an option. I think one of the things is the rock wall where it's not highly visible. You know, it's kind of high. It's kind of hidden back under the back end of that rope. That maybe a more traditional engineered wall, maybe for safety factors, ease of construction, some of those other things may be more appropriate in that area also.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Villanueva.
Thank you. Brooke, can you tell me, I'm trying to understand, still learning. So this is a major site plan review for hillside development, and then the grading resulting in cut steeper. So I understand we're reviewing that at this point. And then the last time, what was it that we reviewed the last time this was in front of us?
So before, let me see if I can run back really quick. So we have several different property owners up here.
Okay.
And so this is, the property owner tonight is different than the property owners that we reviewed before. But they all are trying to work together. So what we reviewed before is the pink, the yellow, and the green to the left of this. That is the single-family homes that are down towards more of the single-family home area. We're seeing a townhome portion in that yellow, and then as we move up, we're seeing the green is a multifamily development. So it was all residential development we were looking at that point.
Okay, so this particular project has not been in front of us.
This has not. This is a new one. And so those 3 projects came before you before. Now, the roadway network was a little different because they were only proposing their development. And they had an agreement with the property owner, okay, we need to get our roadway out to Robb Drive because we need that access. What's happened now is this property owner is coming forward saying, okay, now we're looking to do our development. This is the roadway network that works best for us, but we're still providing that connectivity and still making that basically those other 3 parcels connectivity. In addition, they're providing that connectivity to the west of their site where we'd anticipate future development.
Okay, so those previous projects were approved based on the assumption that this one would be approved?
No, they would have actually had a different roadway alignment, a slightly different roadway alignment. They didn't have because of the traffic volumes that they were generating, they didn't necessitate the 4 lanes and the roundabout, right? But as we're seeing more development, now this group has said, okay, they had their access, right? But they weren't going to build out a full roadway. Now this group's come forward and say, we would like to do 2 paths. We're knowing the intensity of that traffic is going to increase, and we're going to have to increase the roadway. So that's why we're seeing the additional lanes, the turnabouts, and some of the different accesses there.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you said this is a previously disturbed site?
Yes, we've seen grading and other activities on this site for the last couple decades.
Okay, and then can you touch on, because I know with limits on grading and development, we have additional factors we have to consider. In your opinion, how does the project mitigate environmental degradation, including slope failure, erosion, sedimentation, and stormwater runoff? What would?
Sure. As I was showing through that slope out and some of that, they avoided those big, steeper natural areas. Now, that's naturalized vegetation, and anytime we can avoid that, leave it in a natural state, that's probably one of the best options you have for stormwater, environmental, habitat, everything else. So they've tried to preserve those. As mentioned, it's highly disturbed, but we are seeing some steeper slopes. And then below that, we have an area that is naturalized also. We wouldn't anticipate ever seeing development on that. So we have kind of a naturalized area that's coming through that. As far as all the storm drain and all of that, they will be required through their development to meet all our storm drainage requirements. That could be detention, other detention, and that will really depend on how that development comes in and how they address that. But we have very strict standards on how we approach all that.
So there's no, in your opinion, risk of slope failure or anything like that, given these cuts and not a lot of?
You know that they are doing some cuts and stuff like that as it moves out. Maintaining the natural vegetation, our other requirements that we have through our Public Works Design Manual for slope stabilization. We have a SWIP that goes in and they have to protect the site from all of that prior to any construction. So there's a number of steps in place that protect us in that event that I could make the finding and staff could make the findings. Our engineering and Public Works could make the findings on that.
I asked that mainly because the walls, I was wondering if that was tied to why the walls need to be higher. Is there any relation there?
No, I think it's just how they brought that roadway out to get that pad in there, that wall, they're gonna have to cut that back in to match the back slope. They're limited on their property. And as I was kind of saying, as you kind of chase that, you're chasing a hillside and it gets very hard to tie back in. So they've come back in with a wall, which is really appropriate mechanism to really limit overall grading impacts.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we want to move into discussion or entertain a motion. Commissioner Gower, Commissioner Johnson could be your last motion.
Mr. Chair,
Pressure's on.
I'm prepared to make a motion. Just because the pressure's on you, you called me out.
I totally did.
That was appropriate. Okay, hang on, scrolling backwards. Case number LDC 23-00059, Rod Drive Extension. Based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the major site plan review subject to conditions with the modification of the elimination of this last sentence in condition number 6 as requested by the applicant and acceptable to the city. And I guess just one comment before I go, I do like on this project is I appreciate the fact that it's a pretty intensive area, but it's an isolated plateau. And I think having all of or as many of the property owners working together as possible is, makes for a smoother process from our standpoint to be able to look at, okay, one was approved with the acknowledge that another was coming. Now we're seeing that one. The next one now has a legitimate tie into that, and it makes sense. So I appreciate the effort that the applicant and applicant's representative have gone to in order to tie all of this together in a way that makes sense for the full development of that sort of unique geographical location. So there's my comment and my motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the motion. Only one man may second. I'm just joking.
Commissioner Gower, I'll second. I'll just add to that I do also appreciate condition number 10, which requires the additional traffic studies throughout the phasing, because the traffic piece being clarified as those parts of the project become clearer going forward was an important part for me. So with that, I can make the findings.
All right. We got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Good luck to you and all the owners. All right, closing items. Item 6, moving into item number 7, Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report.
Sure. So we have our next meeting on the 27th. That meeting they release the agenda today. There's a couple different items. That meeting happens the 27th.
Can we stop for just a second?
Oh, sure.
Guys, if you guys don't mind moving to the lobby, that'd be great. Just for some ambient noise. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, I can't hear when they do that.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks
I
for
also
stopping.
don't recall if we had a meeting since our last meeting. I think it's been a while, but at our last meeting, we had a workshop on different ways to address water in the region. And we went through a workshop on different water conservation efforts and did some bullet points and talked through it. And I think that was the last meeting we had. Yeah. Okay.
Great. Closing item number 7. Moving on to item number 8, staff announcements. Mrs. Foos.
Angela Foos, Assistant Director for Development Services. Just update from our most recent City Council hearing, which was yesterday. Council's actually been on a break, so they have not had a meeting in over a month, but the Carville Apartments SPD was approved by council yesterday, so that was exciting. Another thing just to mention that Development Services is working on is related to outdoor dining and seating. We are trying to encourage a lot of these downtown and midtown businesses to do outdoor dining, and so council has passed a resolution to waive fees associated with permitting outdoor seating for the next year. Again, the more we can do to be proactive and get these businesses to do things outside and encourage walkability is something our council is very much in support of. So we're going to be pushing that and hopefully getting more outdoor seating in our midtown area where we have these beautiful wide sidewalks now. So look forward to doing more of that kind of positive programming in our downtown area. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Closing item number 8, moving on to item number 9, commissioner suggestions for future agenda items. If I may, just curious, will this be the last meeting for Commissioner Gower and Commissioner Johnson? I say that only because, only for just wanted to, the right time to express gratitude on your send-off. So if this is it, now would be the time. If we think that, because I'm not going to do it again if you're back here in 2 weeks.
This will be the last meeting where they sit at the dais. We will have them come back in August when you guys are both available, and we'll give you a nice little certificate and send off.
Okay, well, I will start because I've always wanted to do it. Just wanted to say thank you for your service. How many years now for both of you?
8 for me.
Okay. Well done. Thank you very much. You guys were excellent at when I started as a new commissioner, hung on to your very words, and because they're very skilled, and we'll try to carry your energy on, but just wanted to give you a big thank you for all your professionalism, insightful questions, and everything else you do, and your smiles.
Yeah, I'll go next. Yeah, I really appreciate both of what you do on the commission. Commissioner Johnson, you were my first chairman, so you'll always be my chairman, just so you know. But I appreciate what you do. I think there's a lot of times where you have, I've told this to both of you, and this is something that we're going to be missing a lot from the commission. There's a lot of times where you all hear things in public comment, where you hear concerns, and you intentionally ask questions to try to address those concerns and to make sure the public feels heard. And that is something that all of us need to work on doing because it is so valuable for the public and for this process. And, at first when I got on, I started thinking, why are they asking these questions? They know the answers. And I eventually realized, it's because you're doing your job to try to make sure the public feels heard and to really filter these projects. And both of you do that better than anyone else I've seen on this commission. No disrespect to y'all. You're great, but you two in particular do it extremely well. But we're losing out on some excellent knowledge and appreciate your insight over the years. So thank you both so much.
Can I just say something to both of you? Thank you for coming back to help with tonight's meeting. I really appreciate that. And thank you for being here all these years. You made my job easy.
So that was definitely not a future agenda item, but we will close item number. Anybody else? Harris. I'm sorry, Commissioner Armstrong. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. As the newest member of this commission, I really do want to express my thanks to both of you. I am sad that you'll be leaving without, I haven't been here for even a year, and I've learned so much in a short amount of time. It's been incredibly instructive. I feel a lot more comfortable between my first meeting and this meeting, and you've given me a lot of things to just consider how to be a good member of this commission. So thank you so much for being generous with your time on the dais and outside of the dais. I appreciate my short relationship with you, and I wish you well.
Awesome. Okay. Closing item number 9, moving to item number 10, public comment. Michelle, any general?
Hey.
What?
Wait, no, you have to do a public comment card.
Yep, definitely, Mr. Durling.
I've been told I talk fast.
And you
so-
only get 1 minute.
Since, I was here and I wanted to stick around, I've known Commissioner Gower and Commissioner Johnson for a number of years, even before their tenures on the Planning Commission. So for both you guys, wanted to express, my appreciation from the professional industry of planners in Northern Nevada. You both are stalwarts. You've been at this for a long time, and just want to express our appreciation. In particular, it's always impressive. You guys are always prepared. You always do your homework. You always have very thoughtful debates and consideration of every item. That means a lot to me as a consultant. I also think it's really impressive that, you both were here for the adoption of a new master plan and a new zoning code. Those are, yeoman's tasks, and for the Planning Commission, that's such a huge effort in conjunction with staff. So just thank you both for your professionalism and your years of service. And I'm sure we'll definitely see you again, but appreciate you guys.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no others in the chambers wishing to speak on public comment, general, and we will close item number 10 and move to item number 11, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.